Hello. I don't really know what I'm doing here, but I just kind of figured I might make a video just talking and playing some Diablo 2 in the background. So maybe I'll make more videos like this, or maybe this will be the only one I ever make. Who knows? Sorry for the crappy audio. My headset's charging right now. So basically, I don't really know what I'm going to talk about. I guess I'll just start with what I did today. So
Hello.
today I woke up,
Greetings, honored traveler.
obviously, and I went upstairs, ate me a pear and a banana and some yogurt.
You have quite.
After that, I took a shower, got dressed, and got ready to go with my dad. My dad and me were off today, and my sister.
I've heard that you are.
And we went to Lobster. It was alright. I got a bunch of shrimp. So
Good day.
my friend always makes fun of me for getting shrimp. I don't know why. Not a very interesting day, but I'm not a guy who lives a very interesting life, I suppose. Also, I should probably preface this whole thing by saying I'm not suicidal or anything like that. Just got bored and got nothing better to do, so I might as well talk to myself for a while.
I don't expect.
Yeah, so I guess the topic for discussion in this video could be loneliness. I've struggled with it for a pretty long time, I guess. It's not necessarily that I don't have friends and have a girlfriend. I've got a lot of people in my life, but that I still end up feeling lonely. And I suppose the way I've worded it before when I told people about it
I can't use
is,
this yet. I can't use this yet.
like I feel like I'm not necessarily... I know this is going to sound selfish, but allow me to explain myself. I feel like I'm not a main part of anybody's life. And like I said, I know that sounds selfish, but what I'm trying to say is, like, you know, most people, they'll wake up, they'll, you know, maybe talk to their parents or go shopping or something, I don't know, just do stuff with their family. You know, they see their girlfriend, maybe they live with them, maybe they've got a wife or husband or whatever, you know. I do have a girlfriend, but we don't get to see each other as often as we both would like. And essentially what I'm trying to say is, like, my life is I wake up and I go to work and I see other people and I go be in their lives. Sorry, it's the first time doing this, so I'll get better at explaining stuff eventually, maybe. I hope. Let me rephrase. My life is, you know, making plans with my friends, making plans with my family, spending time with them, but they all have their own stuff going on. The only stuff I've got going on is the stuff I do with them. When I'm alone, I just kind of sit by myself and I don't do much of anything. I See, this is the thing that sucks about loneliness too. Maybe makes it feel worse. Is like my hobby is I'm really into like board games and stuff, and you know, when you don't really have any friends or family that, which I do sometimes get game nights. I mean, I'm having a game night on Monday with some of my friends, maybe if it doesn't snow this weekend, but I do get sometimes to play them, but like, it's kind of my only interest, and it's my only hobby, and so, like, when you have a hobby where your only interest is something that requires more than one person, it sort of just feels even worse when you're sitting there staring at your big giant shelf full of stuff that you can't use by yourself, I guess. But, back to the point. I was talking about how I don't really feel like I'm a main part of anybody's life. Like, my girlfriend, for example, she's in college. She's got her grandma who she lives with when she's not on campus, and her aunt, and they'll go out and do things, or she'll go out with her friends or something like that. That's what she'll do. My friends, they've all got girlfriends, and they've all got families, and they also have other friends outside of me. Like, some of them have separate friend groups and stuff, and which is fine. I'm not saying that anybody should like have me be their main priority, which I know is what it sounds like I'm saying, but it's not. Essentially, the point I'm trying to make is like, everybody I know has their own thing going on. Here, let me put it like this. If I were to not show up for a day, let's say I don't show up for work, I don't talk to any of my friends, I don't touch my phone, nothing. Their life wouldn't really change much, if at all. I mean, like, as for work, my dad's my boss at my job, and obviously, he'd wonder where I'm at if I didn't show up for work. But let's say I didn't work there, and I just didn't text my dad, didn't text my family, didn't text my friends for a whole day, had no contact with anybody. Nothing about their lives would really change all that much. And I don't know, it just kind of sucks, I guess. Not that I would want their lives to be worse without me, which I know I've got people who care about me. I know, people would care if I wasn't in their lives, but what I'm trying to say is, like, they'd get over it. Not saying, like, if I was gone, but, like, if I had never been a part of their lives to begin with, it wouldn't have been that much different. At least that's how I feel, I don't know. And I know they beg to differ, but, like, even my girlfriend, her main focus is college and stuff like that. And she's great. She's good to me and she cares about me, but some days when she's at college and I'm at work, we won't really talk much beyond saying good morning and good night. And everybody's got stuff that they do or stuff that they have to get done during the day. And meanwhile, when I have my days off, I wake up. If I don't have any plans with anybody, I'll try to get somebody to do something. And if nobody's able to, then I don't do anything. I mean, I sit down in a chair and that's where I'll stay for the rest of the day. Well, not entirely true. I'll kind of wander around and...
I can't use this yet.
I don't know.
I can't use this yet.
I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just yapping, I guess. I'm not trying to get anybody to feel sorry for me or anything. I'm just maybe using it as like kind of a journal for myself really more than anything. I don't really care if anybody watches it or comments or anything like that. Quick side note, I know this is probably the most boring Diablo 2 gameplay you've ever seen. Yes, trust me, I know. I'm the one who got to play it. I decided to be a summoner necro, but sitting around waiting to get a 5-slotted axe so that I can make a rune word weapon kind of requires me to just stand around and let my summons do all the work. So that is what's going on right now. But once I get that 5-slotted axe, things will change. I'm making the bear axe, which is 5 runes: the bear rune, tear, loom, mouth, and oom, or maybe loom. I don't know. I'd have to research it. I'd hate to screw that up. I know the first time I ever made a rune word in this game, I wasn't aware that the weapon couldn't be rare or enchanted in any way. And so I wasted some very high level runes on a weapon that didn't even become a rune word. Or guarding. Where was I? Oh yeah, complaining about being lonely. Yeah, I don't know. I guess now I can move on to next topic from Brett. And now I'm a depressing person. All I have to do is complain. I wouldn't normally complain this much, but like I said, I'm sort of just doing this to collect my thoughts and stuff. Maybe deal with some of my problems I've been having by going through them with myself. So that I don't have to burden nobody else with it. Let's see, what did I say? Okay, right. So I went through high school. See, it's currently almost 1 o'clock in the morning. I went through high school doing engineering for my vocation. And the whole gimmick of the vocation is that, or at least what I always heard going through high school, is that they're supposed to be able to guarantee you a job within 3 months of graduating. Because most of our vocations were partnered with like different businesses around the county. Like, for example, my friend, he did welding, and once he graduated high school, there was a guy he could go and weld for, like pretty much immediately out of high school. Me, on the other hand, I didn't realize at the time that by graduating with engineering, evidently that's one of, if not the only, course, vocation that requires you to go to college to actually do anything with it. So like you go through the vocation and then you can use that experience to get yourself into college for engineering. Now that's where my next problem begins. One of the first classes you have to take as a prerequisite for engineering in an actual large college is calculus, I think, or it's one of the really hard math classes, but it might not be calculus. Maybe it is, I don't know. Point is, it's a hard one. And I'm a guy who is not very good at math. I've always been very good at reading. My ACT score in reading was like a 34, and my ACT score in math was like a 23, I think. So that's a pretty good comparison for those who don't know anything about ACT scores. Actually, I think it was 24. So 10 points apart. So yeah, I've never been very good at math. I'd always make straight A's and B's in school. When it came to math, I would make C's, and sometimes I'd struggle to fight off D's. So that sucked, obviously, finding that out. But that being said, after graduating, I did apply to colleges. Excuse my yawning, I'm sorry. Can't help it. I yawn a lot when I talk or, when I'm breathing a lot for some reason. Where was I? Right, so I did actually go to college after graduating. I went to a community college, which most people would recommend against, but this specific community college is actually it's the #1 in the state, and it's fully accredited. It's actually a very good community college for what it is. During my time there, I went for accounting at first. I know, probably not a good idea for somebody who's not very good at math, but I've never been terrible with money. Only the complicated math that requires full pages of work. Sort of on the side, I started cooking a little bit. Nothing crazy, simple stuff. One-pot recipe, beef stew is kind of my specialty thing. Cornbread. But I started cooking a little bit, and I liked that, and I thought maybe I could do something with that, because accounting, while I was doing well in accounting, I was failing math. And sure enough, I did fail math. And when it came time for my next semester, I was moving on in my accounting classes. I had already taken all my AP English classes in high school, so I didn't have to take any reading or anything like that. I just took some prerequisites in my accounting. I took a business administration class. All of this just to fail math. And sort of through my second maybe it was my third semester of accounting classes and going through that pathway, I was on essentially my third time I was going to fail math. And this is the most simple math class you can take. It was 3 separate professors. At this point I really had no excuse. And I want to say I tried my best, but, if I had tried my best, would I have failed? I don't know. So maybe I didn't try my best. I don't know. It's been a while. Looking back on it, though, I don't know. Yeah, I failed math 3 times in a row. Or at least I would have. I failed it 2 times, and the third time wasn't going well. Essentially, my thought process is, how am I ever supposed to be an accountant if I can't even pass math? Basic math at that. Well, I say basic, I mean, it is complicated because it's college, but it's the most basic math class in college, and there's idiots. Sorry, I know that's rude, I don't mean that. There's people who, I don't know. I'm sorry for saying idiots, that's rude, I know, but you know what I mean? There's people who aren't exactly geniuses, I should say. And I'm not claiming to be a genius myself, but people who aren't geniuses, who go through college and they still graduate, obviously having to have done the most simple math class. And if I can't graduate it, I guess I'm really the idiot. Because, how am I going to call somebody an idiot? And meanwhile, they're doing something I can't. Lots of people go to college and lots of people graduate. And meanwhile there's me. I can't do the most basic thing. So my thought process was, I can't even do math, how am I supposed to be an accountant? So I decided I was going to switch career paths and maybe try cooking, culinary classes. Because I did enjoy cooking for people, even though I wasn't making anything crazy. I made beef stew. I think I made tomato basil soup. Made some others, but basic stuff. But I thought, maybe I could learn how to cook good, and maybe I could. I've always heard the expression, "Do what you love, and you'll never have to work a day in your life." I thought maybe if I do this, I'll be able to do something I enjoy and not have to stress so much, because I guess I'll give a little background. Growing up, I started working when I was 14 years old, is when I got my first job. I know a lot of you will probably think, and I say a lot of you, there's going to be two people who watch this, and one of them is going to be me on my alt account. Where was I? I don't know. So, oh yeah, I guess I'll give a little background. I started working when I was 14 years old. You're probably thinking, how can you start working when you're 14 years old? You got to be at least 16. So, yeah. Well, in the state where I live, you actually can start working when you're 14. You're not very likely to get hired, but like I said, my dad was my boss, and so obviously I got the benefit. And the catch is you can't work more than 3 hours a day when school's in session. You can't work more than a certain number of hours a week. So I was only working 4 to 7. But that being said, I was absolutely miserable. Growing up, I struggled a lot with the fact that my parents weren't really in my life all that much. My dad was in my life, but I'd only see him once a week. And I still do only really see him once a week. Sometimes we are scheduled together, but we don't really talk much. What I'm trying to say is, growing up, I never got much time with my parents, or at least quality time, I should say. Growing up, I don't have very many good memories with them. I mean, I do have good memories with my dad, but they're few and far between because he was always busy. That's not his fault. It's not mine either. But growing up, I kind of resented them for it. Though I know now it's not necessarily my dad's fault that he worked so much. Part of my mom, a lot of it I will say was her, but I pushed her away too because of it. And I'll take accountability for that, but there's only so much you can do as a kid, So I'll just leave that as it is. What I'm trying to say is, I resented them for, and I was going through a hard time in my life. I was going through that quote-unquote rebellious teenage phase, I guess you could say. And my dad being my boss, I would get into it with him at work. I would cuss him out. And I walked out of work many times and quit. And thankfully, he let me come back. I don't know why. But I've gone through a lot of mental health issues. I've gone through suicidal phases, depressed phases, and I'm thankful to say I'm not really in either of those anymore. Just sort of a sad phase, I suppose you could say. I'm at a point in my life where I don't think I'll ever go back to the depressed, and especially not the suicidal phase of my life, thankfully. I can say I'm blessed for that. But anyway, at the time, I walked out of work one time and I just went out in the woods behind work and I just sat there. It was immature of me. I would cuss, get into arguments and cuss with people I don't like, who I worked with in the work group chat. And, I was immature, but I wasn't mature yet. I was still a kid, so not that that's really an excuse. I should have known better, but I was going through it, is what I'm trying to say. And I went through phases where, I remember one time, maybe it was a whole year, I don't know. I just completely ghosted all my friends. I wouldn't answer their messages, I wouldn't do anything like that. Didn't respond to them, even though they were worried about me. Shouldn't have done that. We've made up since then and everything is okay, I'd like to think. But going back to the loneliness thing I said earlier, this isn't anything against them, but just to point out what I mean about the whole, their lives wouldn't change if I was gone thing. It took probably, I'd say, 3 months before any of them actually started to notice that I wasn't talking to any of them. And, I don't hold that against them. They've got their own lives. And what I'm trying to say is they're busy with their own lives. That's they are my lives. If that makes sense. I'm not saying that as in I should be their lives. I'm just saying, I'm just explaining what the loneliness I feel feels like. I'm whining and complaining for no reason, because whining and complaining doesn't make anything better. But I'm here to do kind of like a journal thing, and that's what I'm going to do. So whatever I say, it's just whatever comes off the top of my head.
I can't carry anymore.
Let's see, where was I? Sorry if you have epilepsy, you're probably gone, not with us anymore. So
What a waste of undead
let's have a moment of silence for anybody who watched the video just now and had epilepsy. Thank you. So, yeah, I went through a lot of bad phases growing up.
I can't use this yet.
Did things I regret, but who hasn't? Thankfully, I can say I have never done any kind of drugs. I've never been drunk. I mean, the only time I've ever drank alcohol is, like when I would have a sore throat, my granddad would tell me to take a shot of something. And it did help, I will admit that. So, thanks, Gramps. But, growing up, kind of the only person I had in my life who I would consider a parental figure was my granddad's best friend and the man that we've lived with since I was 4 years old. Right, going back on that a bit. Mom and my dad got divorced when I was 2, I think. Maybe older than that. And then I lived with my dad for a while, but when I say I lived with my dad, what I really mean is I lived at my dad's house, which was my mama's house. My mama and my granddad were divorced, so they lived apart. My dad lived with my mama at the time because him and my mom got divorced, and he would work pretty much all day every day, and he would come and pick me up or come and see me. It would be like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was a little kid, so I was already asleep by then. I was about 4 years old. Because of the whole, never really seeing my dad business, I had ended up living with my granddad, and I'll say his name is Clarence, which is who my granddad paid rent with to live here in town, rather than buying a house. So yeah, this guy, Clarence, he really loved me. He still does, he's not dead. But the thing is, he's pretty much all I had, and he had several strokes caused by presumably stress, because very sadly both of his sons died. He had 2 sons, they both died, and he is in his 90s, or almost in his 90s. Age plus stress like that. He had multiple strokes on Father's Day, so we can pretty much assume what caused that. And I guess I'll give a little story time. It was pretty scary. I had asked him to take me for a ride, because I used to like to go on rides with him. And, right. I asked him to take me for a ride. He said he would. We got in the car, and we're at a stoplight. It turns green, and he's just sitting there. And I'm like, Clarence, the light's green, and nothing. He's just sitting there. I kind of started to get freaked out, and I was like, Clarence, so you're going to go? The light's green. What are you doing? And he finally went, but he was going real slow, and he was swerving in the middle of the road, and going in oncoming traffic and stuff, and I was freaking scared, so I was like, you need to turn around and take me home right now. And thankfully, I got home okay. He got home okay. everything was okay, but that was pretty scary. And that's when I told my granddad he needs to take him to the hospital because something is clearly wrong, which he did. And yeah, like I said, turns out he had several strokes, and apparently he had a couple mini strokes before that, which I wouldn't really know, but make a long story short, he had several strokes, and by the time he got back from the hospital, it was very hard, very painful for me, I'd say, because, imagine the person you're closest to in life, and then imagine that one day something happens to them, and, I'll just give you an example. He would come home and he'd be sitting out on the front porch with us, and his phone would start ringing, and I would point that out and say, "Clarence, your phone's ringing," and I'd try to show him, and I could literally put the phone an inch in front of his face and he would just stare through it. So that was not easy to deal with, especially when I'm going through that phase in my life where I'm stressed out all the time. I'm taking it out on people around me instead of myself. Well, really, I was taking it out on myself too, because I wasn't happy with myself, and, so on. So, I had pretty much lost the only person I had who was like a parental figure to me, I could say. And he did slowly start to get better, and obviously he's more aware now. But the thing is, ever since his stroke, he's been kind of like a child, I could say. We have to take care of him instead of him taking care of me, like before he was my parental figure. So essentially, he had gone from being like my dad, basically, and filling that role in my life, to being someone I have to take care of. And that is kind of where the whole loneliness thing starts. I had a girlfriend at the time. We ended up breaking up, but now I have a separate girlfriend, which I'm very happy about, but like I said, we don't live together yet. I do want to live with her eventually, but I'm in no position to do that right now. Plus, like I said, she's in college, living on campus, about 2 hours away from me. So we don't get to see each other as much as we'd like, so, I'm still lonely. And, so the whole topic of this was regret. I went to college, of course, and I did the culinary thing. Yeah, this was the most long-winded, turn around to come back to something I was talking about in any YouTube video ever made, but I started taking culinary classes. And after the first day, about the syllabus, I did the first assignment, and the second day, I decided, no, this is not for me. And I just stopped going to college. I didn't formally drop out. I just stopped going altogether. And that being said, because I informally withdrawed, if I were to go back there, which, keep in mind, I said that this was a community college. It was also the best community college in the state, fully accredited, very good college. They've got a lot of programs with other colleges to complete 4-year degrees and stuff like that. I got scholarships, and it's also one of the cheapest colleges to go to in the state because they have a lot of programs to help people out paying for it. Like if you pass all your classes, they have a program where every time you pass one of your classes, they'll pay back part of your tuition. So, you're basically going to college for free. In addition to that, I had gotten scholarships so much to the point where I was being paid to go to college. And no loans, I didn't have to pay any of it back. I was in a good position to make something of myself. And I didn't. I gave it all up. And now I am the manager at a Domino's Pizza. Which, it's It's better than being an employee, just a regular, customer service person, but needless to say, when I'm sitting here, I've got one friend who works in a steel mill, and he has a home, has a girlfriend who, if I had to guess, he'll probably marry before any of us marry our girlfriends, that being our friend group. So he's got a good thing going. I got another friend, the one I was mentioned earlier, who's a welder. He just recently purchased his own house. It's a trailer. But, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not the type of person to admire mansions and big houses and stuff, because the way I see it, all I need to survive, I'd be perfectly content living in a studio apartment. All I need is a bed, a kitchen to make my food, and a place for my board games and stuff like that. So, I'm not the type of person to care about that type of stuff. That being said, I'm in a position to where I've got a friend who's I am 2 years his elder. So he's 2 years younger than me, graduated high school 2 years after me. This being said, I'm not saying this as in like a resentful way or like I'm jealous of him or anything like that. I'm not trying to tear him down. What I'm trying to say is, it's kind of embarrassing from my point of view, to where I've got somebody who's the same age as my sister, who, from my point of view, it's my little sister, and meanwhile he's doing far better in life than me, and I'm still living with my granddad, and I've given up, essentially, on doing anything with my life. And dropping out of college like I did, if I were to go back, I would have a large debt to pay. So the fact that I can formally withdraw, and I failed to fulfill my scholarship requirements. So that's kind of off the table for me, because in between my granddad and Clarence's medical bills, because, they're old, they go to the hospital a lot, and the doctor. In between their medical bills and stuff, they don't have a lot of money. And that being said, I'm a manager at a Domino's. We live in a country where, everything's just getting more and more expensive, and, I'm not going to make any of this political, but, there's people out there who genuinely believe that the people we elect are going to do better for us, and yet, ever since I've been born, everything's only gotten more expensive and worse. Nothing's ever gotten better. So do with that what you will. So, like I said, I'm a manager at Domino's. Most of my friends are doing better than me.
I am overburdened.
And I guess I should address this. My granddad, I said Clarence was like my parental figure growing up. My granddad was in my life, yes, but me and him never got along. We still do hardly ever get along. We used to argue every single day. And to be honest, he's kind of a miserable person. He's the type of person to never have good news. He thrives off of, figuring out bad news, scrolling on Facebook, looking at all the bad things happening in the world and telling everybody else about it. Saying something good to him. He's a negative person, that's what I'm trying to say. And, so we never really saw eye to eye, and we never really looked up to him, because I didn't want to be anything like him personally.
Good evening.
So I just had to address that.
Good evening.
So yes. Everybody who I'm friends with, everybody who I'm friends with is doing better than me. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I am so happy for my friends. I'm proud of all my friends. I want them to do great. and I'm glad that they are. But I wouldn't say I'm jealous, but I'd say I'm kind of, well, like I said, the topic of discussion right now is regret. I regret not having done something with my life. To where my friends could be proud of me, Like, I was so happy when I found out my friend got his house. Both my friends got their separate houses. I was proud of him, especially the younger one, because he's my best friend. And, I wish I could do something like that for my friends to be proud of me. But meanwhile, I'm kind of just, I don't want to talk bad about myself because I know it's not doing me any favors, but, I'm a bum. I live in my granddad's house. I freaking sit around all day playing board games. I lost 90 pounds last year by going to the gym and stuff, and you might say that's great, but I'm still fat. 220 pounds, I'm 6'1". I'm 219 pounds, technically. But, I'm a fat bum, living in my granddad's basement. I'm almost 22 years old. I will be in 3 months. Not even, less than 3 months. Things don't really show any sign of changing soon. I don't have enough money or make enough to live in an apartment, even. I guess I kind of feel like a failure. I don't have any skills that, an employer would look for, per se. I have tried applying at places, lots of places, but I'm sure a lot of you might know how that goes. Not so well. And even the places I would apply at, I'm not going to be making much more than I would anyway being a manager at Domino's. Because right now I make, well, I guess we're not supposed to talk about that, but I make more than minimum wage, a little above average, I'd say, for this type of job. But, at the end of the day, it ain't enough. It ain't enough. And I kind of question, what would be the point anyway? Because if I did go and I got myself a place, what would change? I'd be the same fat dude with all his board games that he has no one to play them with. So, the sad part is it's quite, I guess it'd be kind of depressing to look at. Most of the times in my free time, I will just pull them out and just play them against myself. Which is lame. It sucks. I would love to have somebody to play with, but like I said, most of my friends are busy often. So yeah. So essentially what I'm trying to say is, if any of you out there have something going for yourselves, don't let it go. Because even though it might seem hard, I promise you, nothing you have going on right now, no matter how hard it is going to be harder than the feelings that you have of regret when you realize that you had something going in your life and you let it go. I went from being somebody who had a full ride through college to get a degree and do something with my life to a college dropout who cannot go back to college and who doesn't even have enough money at 22 years old to move out of his granddad's house. And which, that being said, I will say I have friends who do still live with their parents. And, you might say that's, you're not supposed to compare yourself to people. I don't think I do. I know you might think contrary considering how I spoke about, all my other friends. It's not that I want to compare myself to them and, look at my blessings versus theirs. It's just that, I know I should be doing better. And here I am not doing better. And I don't know, I kind of just it's like I kind of just feel like it's over, I guess. Like I'm just gonna end up in the same position my dad is in, being a manager at Domino's. And that being said, my dad makes good money doing what he does. He's the GM. But it's not what I ever wanted for my life. I wanted something that my family could be proud of, something my friends could be proud of, and most of all, something I could be proud of. And I've thrown it all away. You know, you could argue it's not too late. I would argue you have no motivation to really do anything, and you have nobody in life to look to. My dad's a college dropout. Like I said, he's in the same position that I'm probably going to end up in. It just makes you think, like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm just yapping at this point, so I might close the video soon. And I might make more. I don't know. I really made this video more for myself than for anybody else, but if you watch the video, then by all means, thanks, I guess. And don't watch this thinking that, like, you need to feel bad for me or thinking that I need help or anything like that, because I don't. I'm okay. I mean, really, I'm okay. I've been doing it this long, I can keep doing it longer. I figure stuff out as I go. I've kind of, I guess you could say, stagnated, where for a time in my life, things were getting better and better and better, and then they got worse and worse and worse, and then they stopped getting worse, but they haven't gotten any better. And I kind of feel like every day is just more the same, you know, like, I can't think of the last time I did something new. I really can't. So, anyway, that was my yap session. Please don't comment this, or for those of my friends watching, don't watch this and feel the need to text me and ask me if I'm okay and stuff. I am okay. I'm okay. I just wanted to explain how I kind of feel, you know, and explain where I'm at in life, where my head is at. I'm not depressed. I'm not suicidal. I'm not anything like that, you know. I don't have my future figured out, and I don't really know what I want to do with my life or where I'm going to go in life, but I do know it'll be okay, because I know that God is always with me. And Jesus. So I have that to hold on to. I'm not contrary to what you might think, or based on everything I've said so far, I'm not, you know, depressed. Just kind of, you know, wondering what's next. kind of wonder if anything will ever change. You know, I don't want things to get worse, but so, you know, I guess you could say I should be grateful for things not being any worse so long, but to be honest, I wish they'd get better. I wish. If I had a genie, you know. But I don't. Genies aren't real, so that being said, side note, you're gonna have to excuse all the long pauses in the video, because frankly, I don't know how to edit on PlayStation, and like I said, this is more for me anyway, so feel free to skip them whenever I sit here and have a stroke. Probably an insensitive joke considering the whole thing I said about Clarence, but I've always been a guy to joke, never take anything too seriously, so. Whatever, I'll wrap it up now. Thanks to anybody who did watch. I mean, I might not even upload this, I don't know. I'll make more. Maybe I will, who knows. Yeah. See ya.